All right. So we are now looking at the next market in the economy. So we looked at labor markets last time. We looked at the goods market today. Now the next one is the assets market. So by that I mean, bond markets, shares, real estate, all those markets. Okay, the way we will do it, there is a market for money where we have demand and supply of money. And then in the background, something that we will not show on the graph, but will be working in the background, there are the markets for the other financial assets, like the market for bonds and so on. Okay, so that will be important in understanding how the assets market work. So let's first focus on the supply side of the market for money. So we have money supply, we have nominal money supply, M. M is an exogenous variable which is set by the central bank. We will see later in the course it's not actually quite like that. What the central bank actually sets is the so-called monetary base, and then we have other, the entire banking system contributing to it. But for now, let's say that the central bank decides about money supply. So that's the nominal money supply. The real money supply is when we divide the nominal money supply by the price level, the general price level. Just like for anything, any nominal variable in the economy, when we want to make it real, we divide it by the price level. Okay? So this is also the case in this case. So this is the real money supply. This is exogenous, and the price level in our case now we keep it fixed for now. Okay? So that's the real money supply. So we have real money supply on the horizontal axis and the interest rate on the vertical axis. So because this is an exogenous variable that is set by the central bank, it doesn't depend on the interest rate, so it's a vertical line. The central bank just decides, let it be at this level, and so we draw this vertical line. Okay? Now let's move on to money demand. Okay? To understand the way money demand works, we have to look at those other markets in the background. Because when holding money, all of us, we make a choice with respect to a trade-off. If we hold money, we get nothing for the money we hold. But if instead of holding that money, we put that money in the bank, or we purchase bonds, or some other financial asset, then at least we hope to get some return. Some financial return. We get an interest rate from it. Okay? So the interest rate that we would be getting if we were not holding money is the opportunity cost for us of holding that amount of money. Okay? So the higher the interest rate, the higher that opportunity cost, the lower will be our money demand. We will want to hold little amount of money. If the interest rate is low, then we will not care about investing in other things. So we will be happy to hold more money. So therefore, the money demand function is a negative function of the interest rate. It's downward sloping. When the interest rate is low, we have higher money demanded. When the interest rate is high, we have lower money demanded. Okay? So here we have a money supply and we have a money demand. So there will be an equilibrium interest rate where money demand is equal to money supply. Okay. Now, remember we want to derive the LM curve. Okay. So, suppose so here in the slides they talk about the Fed. The Fed is the American central bank. Okay? Since we are in Pakistan, we should be talking about the Central Bank of Pakistan in this case. So we should replace that with the Central Bank of Pakistan. When they want to increase the interest rate, they will reduce the money supply. Why would that work? Because by reducing the money supply, you can see, at the original interest rate, there will be an excess demand for money compared to supply. So, what does that mean when there is an excess demand for money? People want more money than they can find. So they will be in a rush to sell their bonds to get the money that they want. And now with respect to the bond market, which is in the background, and which affects the interest rate, you should know that the price of bonds is inversely related to the interest rate that you can get on the bond. And why is that? Because if you consider, for example, a simple bond which gives you, after 1 year, so you start at 0, and at 1, you get, say, $100. Okay. What will be the price of this bond at 0? Will be the $100 discounted by the appropriate factor. So it will be, the price will be equal to the $100 divided by 1 minus R. Sorry, 1 plus R. It was still with the marginal propensity. So 1 plus R. So you can see that there is an inverse relation between the price of the bond and the interest rate. When the price of the bond, when the interest rate goes up, the price of the bond goes down. And when the interest rate goes down, the price of the bond goes up. So when there is excess demand for money, then people want to get rid of their bonds. So therefore the price goes down and the interest rate goes up. So that pushes up the interest rate here, and that's why the central bank will be successful by reducing the money supply in increasing the interest rate. Okay? Now, the money demand does not only depend on the interest rate, but also depends on your income. Of course, if you are earning more, then you demand more money, naturally. So it's a positive function of income. So the money demand function is a, let me write the real version. Real money demand is a function of the interest rate, a negative function of the interest rate, and a positive function of income. Which means that, you see, this function here was drawn for a particular level of income. If we increase the level of income, it will shift. So this is a particular level of income. So we have at this level of income, this equilibrium interest rate. And we plot it here. Now, if we increase the level of income, then money demand shifts. Okay, so we have a higher interest rate, and a higher level of income. So we connect the dots once again, and we have the LM curve, which is upward sloping. That means that to keep the assets markets in equilibrium, when interest rate goes up, income also needs to go up. Okay, so why would that be? Why to keep the market in equilibrium? To preserve the equilibrium between money supply and money demand. For a higher interest rate, you need to have also higher level of income. Why is that? Anybody wanting to have a go? It's not difficult. Think about the mechanism. With the higher level of interest rate, what happens to money demand? If there is a higher interest rate, we want to purchase more bonds. So we will decrease our money demand. So since money supply is fixed, we cannot afford to let money demand go down. Otherwise, the market will no longer be in equilibrium. So we need something else to bring money demand back up. And that is a higher level of income. So that's why with a higher interest rate, we need higher income to preserve the equilibrium in the money market. Did you follow? Is that clear? Would you be able to repeat the argument? No? Okay, let me repeat it. This is an important one. With a high interest rate, the opportunity cost of holding money increases. So money demand goes down. But money supply is fixed. So if money demand goes down, then the equilibrium is broken. So we need something else to compensate, to offset the drop in money demand due to higher interest rate, and that is a higher level of income. With higher income, we said that we have a higher money demand. So will you be able to replicate the argument now? Anybody wants to have a try? Yes?
When interest rate rises, it causes the money demand to fall. So in order to maintain the equilibrium as money supply is fixed, we increase income.
We need the higher level.
We need the higher level of income in order to increase money demand.
Exactly. To prevent money demand from falling. Right. Very good. Thank you. Okay. But I don't like this graph too much because it doesn't show. So you see, with a higher level of income, it doesn't show what would happen at the original interest rate. To see that, this graph is better. You see here, this is drawn for a particular level of income, 4,000. Then we increase the level of income. So at the previous interest rate level, we have excess money demand, right? So this is what will push the interest rate up. Because with excess money demand, we said, people are looking for money, and therefore they will want to sell their bonds. And when they sell their bonds, the prices of bonds goes down, and the interest rate goes up. So that's how we move. First we go here, and then we move this way back to equilibrium. We go from A to B and then from B to C. This is the adjustment, how the adjustment happens. And that's why the LM curve is upward slope. Okay? All right. So now let's consider why would the LM curve shift. A very natural way of having the LM curve shift is by considering an increase in money supply. If the central bank increases money supply, then this vertical line shifts to the right. And you can see that at the original interest rate, there would be excess supply of money. Excess supply, people will want to get rid of their money. They want to purchase bonds. So the price of bonds goes up, interest rate goes down. Interest rate goes down, and we are still at the same level of income. Income has not changed. Okay? So, for this reason, the LM curve would shift to the right. Okay, so again, this is the same thing, but in steps, so that you can see exactly what's happening. This is, by the way, considering the opposite change. When there is a decrease in money supply, then we have, at the original interest rate, we have an excess demand for money, increase in interest rate, at the same level of income, so we shift to the higher LM curve. Now, what happens when there is an increase in real money demand, which is due to exogenous reasons, not due to increase in income? So if real money demand shifts because of higher income, we know we move along the LM curve, right? We have seen that. That's the way we derived the LM curve. We let income increase. For that reason, we have higher interest rate. So we move to another point on the LM curve. Now, if real money demand shifts due to some other reason, other than income, how would the LM curve shift? You can see why. Because first, you have the excess demand for money. So you have the increase in interest rate for the reasons we have explained. But the level of income has remained the same. That's crucial. So we have the same level of income, but a higher equilibrium interest rate. So that tells you that we are on a different LM curve now, which is higher, shifted up to the left. Okay? So here, once again, we have a summary table of the reasons why the LM curve could shift. So let's look at it. We considered change in nominal money supply. That's the one due to policy changes. It's generally changed by the central bank. Now, another important one is the price level. You know, real money supply is M over P. M over P. So all what we did in the previous analysis up to a moment ago was for a given fixed price level. But what if the price level changes? That's very important. What if the price level increases, for example? What happens to real money supply? This is real money supply. The price level has gone up. It will fall, right? So what is the relevant analysis? The relevant analysis is this one, right? Wait. This one. If the price level goes up, then this line shifts to the left. And therefore, interest rates go up. No? Interest rates go up. And we shift to higher LM curve. So in other words, this is a very important aspect, a change in the price level will cause a shift around in the LM curve. Okay? That will be how we will be deriving the aggregate demand curve later on. You will see. Okay, so that's another way, another reason why LM curve shifts. Yet another reason is a change in expected inflation, which is somewhat related to that, but it's not quite exactly the same thing. Inflation, you know, is defined as, what is inflation?
Sustained increase in the price.
It's the rate of change in the price level, right? But expected inflation is what we expect it to be, right? So if we have an increase in expected inflation, then what does that mean in terms of the money we are holding?
So we want to hold less money.
Why?
So because the value of the money we are holding will fall.
Will fall. So the purchasing power of what we have is falling. In other words, the real money balance we have in our pocket is falling. Okay, so that is why with an increase in expected inflation, again, demand for money falls. Okay, so for that reason, the LM curve will shift down. Okay, I would suggest that you forget about this because it's very confusing for students. That is, you know, normally the interest rate works the way we have seen, and you don't get an interest rate on money. You know, there is no interest rate on money. So just actually, if anything, even if you put the money in the bank in a current account, what you end up with is not getting an interest rate, but you end up with paying expenses because it is costly for the bank to keep your money. So if anything, your money will go down, will not go up. You know, so forget about the interest rate on money. It's very confusing. Ignore this line. And there are other reasons why money demand may increase. These are listed here. An increase in wealth, of course, will increase money demand. An increase in risk of alternative assets. So if suddenly, you know that when you are going to the ATM machine, you can be robbed. There is a high probability of robbery once you are at the ATM machine. Then probably you will want to hold more money so that you don't need to go as frequently to the ATM machine. Okay, so also, risk of alternative assets might be
Stock market volatility.
that kind of risk as well. And decline in the liquidity of alternative assets when you cannot sell them as quickly, as easily. And decline in the efficiency of payment technologies. If you know you cannot pay by card, for example, then you will want to hold more money. You know, I spent some time in Finland last year when I was on sabbatical, and I hardly had any money in the pocket because everything you can pay by card. Even a cup of tea you pay by card. You don't hardly use any money if you don't want to. So when there is a very efficient payment technology, then you hardly want to hold any money. Okay, so this is with respect to the LM curve. Now we put all those three lines, the three markets, that we have analyzed together, and we have the general equilibrium. The general equilibrium is the point where the labor market is in equilibrium, as shown by the fact that you are on the full employment line. The goods market is in equilibrium, as shown by the fact that you are on the IS curve. And the LM curve shows that you are also, that the asset market is in equilibrium. Okay? Now, is it natural to be at that point? That's the question we should ask ourselves. How natural is it that we are at E? Why we cannot be at some other point?
So because the market self-adjusts back to E.
Yeah, we will see that. But, you know, one thing we want to know about is that in the short run, the natural thing is for these two markets to be in equilibrium. So we will be on the ISLM equilibrium in the short run. And then prices will adjust, and the adjustment in prices will bring us to the general equilibrium with the labor market also in equilibrium. So I see it's a little early. Now, on one hand, I'm not sure I'm going too fast, but I have a feeling that I cover enough ground for today. And if I keep going at this pace, I will probably cover too much ground, and you will have too many things to absorb. On the other hand, I'm of course feeling a little uncomfortable with ending the lesson early. So I guess one reason why we cover quite a bit and we still end up finishing early is because it goes very fast. I mean, I don't get any reason to slow down because you're just listening and there is no real, interaction.
This is all revision, so because we did this in principles, more or less.
Okay, so you are all very familiar with it, but when I ask, can you repeat the argument about why this happens, then I see a bit of silence. So I'm not too clear about being, just revision, or whether actually there is a need for to make this more, proactive in some way. But then again, the main concern to fill you with too much stuff at this stage is still there. So I will stop here as far as new material is concerned. But if you have questions, things to ask, I'm very happy I'm here to answer your questions. And I actually encourage you to go back to what we have done today and see if everything is clear. If not, this is a very good time to clarify anything. So let me just recap. Go back to the lecture outline. Okay. And by this way, recap what we have done so that we can become aware of anything we have not understood clearly. So first we derived the IS curve by using two ways. The Keynesian cross and the savings equal investments equality. So was everything clear about the Keynesian cross? The way we draw it and what it represents on the graph and how we derive from that the IS curve? So one thing I should say here, now that I remember, is that behind all these graphs we are looking at, there is some algebra, of course. So when you draw a line, forget about the economics. If you draw a line, and you draw a negatively sloped line, what would be the equation for that line? You have a line, this is x and this is y. This is not economics now. So you have a line like this. What is the equation for that line?
Y is equals to minus.
Y is equal to,
C minus M.
Minus mx plus c.
there is some vertical intercept, call it A, minus, because it's negatively sloped,
Bx.
Bx, where B is the slope of the line. Okay? So in our case, the highest curve, if it's a line, if it's a linear function, will be in that kind of spirit. So R, our Y is R. Okay? There will be a slope, which we may call alpha IS. Okay? So this is R. And then there will be a vertical intercept, which will be alpha IS here. And then there will be a slope, and our X is Y. Y in the sense of output, income. Okay? So that will be our IS curve. So there will be some algebra, and we will see how to derive. So where is this equation coming from? It's obviously coming from where? Where do we get this equation from?
It is coming from the IS curve. IS curve.
That's the description of the IS curve, but what is the source of that equation?
So it's our basic y is equals to c plus I plus g plus x minus m.
Yes, it's this equation, right? It's coming from here. That's the way we get that equation, okay? On the other hand, if we have a positively sloped line, okay, if we have a positively sloped line which could start from negative or from positive, doesn't really matter. What would be the equation of this line?
Y is equals to a plus bx.
So if it's again x and y, here we have x and y, it will be y equal,
Minus a plus bx.
in the way I drew it, it will be minus a plus bx. So in our case, it's r would be equal to basically minus alpha ln plus beta ln times y. A rough version of the ln curve would be that one. Okay, so there is algebra behind the ln curve as well. So this would be the ln curve, this would be the IS curve. Okay. And of course there is also algebra behind the full employment line. Where is that coming from? We saw it last time. It's coming from the production function, right? So if we replace level of employment with the full level of employment, then we have the full employment level of output. Okay, so that's where we have the full employment line, the vertical one. We will see all these things more in detail, but I just wanted you to be aware that behind each graph there is an equation, or there are more equations if the graph includes more than one line. For each line there is an equation. Okay? All right. So, any more questions? And one thing I want to add is that, by the way, once you know what this term is made of, then you know why the highest curve would shift. Because it shifts when the vertical intercept is changing. So once you know what is inside here, then you know very clearly when the curve is shifting. All right. I'm done. Do you have any question? No? Okay. So we'll end early here once again, but see you next week.
Sir? So I was not here in the first session.
Right?
I just went over the course outline. Could you explain the debt and the Kahoot? Like what are these systems?
Oh, okay. Okay, so learning management system, you know. You know. The ones in yellow, I'm not sure I'll be using them. So they are still here under consideration. The Kahoot is a live quiz that I administer. If you come with this or with a smartphone equivalent, you will be able to log in and then play the quiz. I will ask questions, and then you will have to pick a color corresponding to the right answer.
Oh, like
So that will be
quiz game.
yeah, that will be how I will track attendance.
Oh, okay.
So your class participation, more correctly, that will depend
On the
partly on the fact that you are taking the quiz, and partly on how you score on the quiz.
oh, okay, sir.
Okay,
Oh, thank you, sir.
you're welcome.